Right now, I am standing in what ballerinas call fifth position. Professor Fike would probably say that I'm twisting my legs and that this is not very good posture for delivering a narrative speech, but to me, it is an ingrained habit that has become second nature. I grew up dancing. I began ballet when I was 4 years old, hardly old enough to understand the discipline or even the art behind it. Um, our our recitals mostly consisted of us wearing cute little tutus on stage and just being adorable. If anyone has ever been to a children's dance recital, you know what a mess it is. The chaotic twirling, jumping, and dancing really creates quite the scene. I've been that little girl on stage who's put so much effort into learning her dance and being so excited to perform it for her parents, only to be overcome by stage fright and just staring like a deer in the headlights, completely forgetting everything she's learned. But my parents didn't care if I remembered my dance. They just wanted to be there to support their little girl. As I grew older, ballet began to mean more to me than simply pretty tutus. It became a commitment, a discipline, and a lifelong lesson. Throughout my middle school and most of my high school years, I had ballet every single day after school. I would spend hours training, often not getting home until extremely late and still having to do all of my schoolwork. It began to get a lot more serious. I would travel to weekend dance conventions, often driving over 5 hours. And as Nikki mentioned in our last speech, I even traveled across the country to Bates College in Lewiston, Maine to attend a month-long summer dance intensive. Whenever people would ask me what my hobbies or my sports are, I would say ballet. It became such a huge part of my identity, and I don't know who I'd be without it. Although I loved the people and the performances, ballet itself was very mentally exhausting. As I grew older, I became more acutely self-aware about my body image, and I'm sure a fair share of us have struggled with that at some point in our lives. I began to dread going to ballet. It used to be my favorite thing to do. Now I have tried to come up with any excuse I could not to go. Sometimes, and don't tell my mom this because she would have a heart attack considering how much she paid for these classes, but I would drive the 20 minutes to the studio only to sit in my car for the entire duration of the class. It was heartbreaking to see how something that I loved more than anything in the world became my enemy. My fear of ballet stemmed from my own insecurities. I'm not sure how familiar all of you are with the customs of a ballet class, but the uniform consists of a skin-tight leotard with tights and ballet shoes. There's nowhere to hide. The purpose of this uniform is so the instructor can see your movements and correct them, but to the mind of a young and growing dancer, it was extremely detrimental. Staring for hours on end into these huge mirrors caused my adolescent mind to spiral into an extremely negative headspace. I felt like I was unworthy to be dancing because I didn't look the part. Ballerinas are notorious for being tall and thin, and I was none of that. I began to dread those hours spent in the studio, and my sophomore year of high school, I decided to quit. This is not an easy decision. In fact, I based my entire sophomore year English final around this, writing this long essay and making this super intricate video of all my dance performances throughout my dance career. Essentially, this decision was taking up a lot of my time and my energy. I let my negative view of both ballet and myself overpower those things that I loved, such as the community, the performances, and just the beauty of the art itself. Moving on to my junior year, I don't know how it happened, but I guess I couldn't let go of ballet completely. I decided to take one class a week, and it was the best decision that I could have made. I put less pressure on myself to be perfect, and in turn, I allowed myself more freedom to truly express who I am. I stopped staring into the mirror for hours on end, pointing out every little thing that was wrong with me. I could enjoy the time I spent in the studio because I enjoyed my own presence. I began to fall back in love with ballet and all that it taught me. I remembered how a good class made me feel alive and beautiful, and how a bad class taught me how to handle pressure with grace. I realized that my love for something has more to do with my perspective and less to do with my intrinsic ability or talent. When I approached ballet with a negative attitude, I hated everything about it. But when I changed my perspective and I approached it and became more positive, I began to love the time that I spent in the studio. This experience changed the way I approach everyday life. It made me understand that the key to a positive experience is a positive perspective. Perspective changes everything. I implement this value in my day-to-day life, always reminding myself the role that my own mindset plays within my experiences. Throughout my years of hard work, and ballet has become a second nature to me. And in turn, so has the ability to change my perspective on a situation. And so, whether I'm having a hard day at work, at school, or just a bad day in general, I stand in fifth position, take a deep breath, and remind myself it all depends on your mentality. Thank you.